Okay, so this exhibition is called Material Worlds, Contemporary Sculpture from Ireland and the UK. And it's the first exhibition of recent sculpture that's been on show in the FE McWilliam Gallery and Studio. The idea behind the exhibition was really to, I suppose, have a survey of what sculpture is now. Then we have there's one very large piece outside by Ben Allen. It's a large monumental sculpture of a dog, and it's going to be outside the gallery, kind of guarding the gallery from hopefully tomorrow if it's finished until probably early next year. And what we wanted to do was to really get a huge sculpture on a big scale. It's very difficult to do that because if you were going to commission a big bronze sculpture, it would cost, you know, hundreds of thousands. But Ben is a London-based artist, and he came up with the wonderful idea of making large sculptures in scaffolding. And he worked on a building site when he was a student and was quite familiar with buildings. We then have work by Margaret O'Brien. This is part of a larger installation. The installation is called A Long Goodbye, and it was a work that was first installed in Drogheda a couple of years ago. It was nominated for the AIB Prize. It's one of the major prizes in the south of Ireland. And Margaret again has been here for days and days installing these amazing pieces. And if you look closely, you'll realise that they're all teacups that have been smashed and then pieced back together.
I originally built this piece in 2007. And I had built a 16-foot square cube with a doorway at the back of the unit. So this is like one side of the cube, and housed within, I thought of it as a room, and I called it a room. And so housed within the room were other walls of cups stacked into one another, different kind of cups, so they have a different aesthetic. And so the space within the piece was very tight and very. There wasn't very much room to move around, so the idea was that the viewer would feel very uncomfortable and nervous in the space about knocking the walls down. And I was dealing with the idea of just fragility and vulnerability and how we all experience that throughout life in different ways. And I was thinking particularly about different kinds of relationships and how fragile really our relationships with one another are in many senses, and how we build them up and then things happen and they break down and we repair them and rebuild them again, or try to. And the cups and saucers reference that for me, the idea of communication with a cup of tea, or that sort of private conversation with somebody, or not necessarily private but personal conversation with somebody. So the cup of tea was a metaphor for that, and I had spent a few months in the studio beforehand I've broken every cup and saucer and stuck it back together again. So the cracks at the time, that was a very important part of the piece, and now that some time has gone on, I perhaps feel that that's less important, but it was very crucial really at the time. And I really wanted the cracks to be evident in the cups and saucers, because I guess I wanted them to make the cups appear less stable and more vulnerable or fragile than perhaps they are. And
exactly, look incredibly fragile and incredibly precarious. And you know, your initial thought is they're just going to collapse. Luckily there is support within them, but they're meant to look very fragile and very precarious. We have a couple of pieces which I think children will particularly love. We've got this wonderful yellow helicopter by Brendan Jamison. Brendan lives in Bangor, and he's a really well-known artist in the Northern Ireland art scene. His yellow helicopter is part of the Arts Council's collection, and I know it's been shown quite a few times. And it's wonderful because you think of a helicopter, a big kind of technological machine, and what he's done is actually reconstructed with just wood and then put lots and lots of wool over it, so you get this very soft, kind of quite cuddly effect. And Brendan also has a big red tunnel we have in the corner as well. And again, it's so tactile, and you really feel like you want to touch it. We're trying to stop people touching it because you get little muddy hands on it. But it's just a lovely play, I think, between the object represented and the material used. And it's something. Brendan's work is very playful and quite childlike, and he's also quite well known for doing sculptures in sugar cube. He actually makes buildings or kind of reconstructions of models of buildings out of sugar cubes. So very unusual materials being used, again, for quite substantial things. We have then a wonderful installation by an artist called Tim Shaw.
Well, the work's called Parliament, titled Parliament, and it first began, I'm going to turn that time, Parliament being those that are in a position of power to govern, and also it's the collective term for rooks. It's a Parliament of Rooks. The piece is originally inspired by a residency that I did in the west of Ireland, where I went there and wasn't really quite sure why I went there or what I was going to do with my time. And I kind of sat around, time passed quite anxiously, and I began to, off in the distance, look at how bits of black baling plastic snagged upon the barbed wire and fences and trees, how they took on shapes that resembled birds such as crows and rooks. Went out and collected some plastic off the barbed wire and surrounding fields and trees and hedgerow. Brought it back, and then I decided I would make a whole room of them. And then I was thinking about the collective term of rooks and began drawing and observing them, and saw this sort of correlation between the behaviour of rooks and the behaviour in Parliament of MPs as they debated. I used to listen a lot to Radio 4 at night, and which has a programme called Today in Parliament. And it just seemed that it just seemed appropriate that I should merge the cries of rooks with that of the debating parliamentarians.
Tim is a Belfast-born artist who's really made his career in England. He was recently, he was got a very prestigious fellowship in England. He's now based in Cornwall, and he was actually inspired by FE McWilliam very early on in his career. He met McWilliam, and I suppose because they were both Northern Irish-born sculptors who were living in England, that was somebody who he was particularly inspired by. Then we also have John O'Connell's work, and John is also here in the gallery, so he might say a few words.
Well, the whole installation is called Big Pink, and it's a multimedia exhibition of film and installation. So it's a site-specific installation. It's built here for the gallery space. So the work is dealing with my interest is in lots of different things, such as cosmology, planetary, cell-like biology, and all these different ideas kind of come into the work. And really it's a self-made kind of universe that works with a variety of different materials to combine together to give a kind of a whole worldly kind of look. Yeah, I mean this piece is made from paper mache, and it very much has that planetary look about it, and it directly relates to the film piece here, which is a stop frame animation working with found and broken bits and pieces come together in this kind of evolving landscape where things both destruct and there's kind of apocalyptic sensory where things just are destroyed and then they come together.
I think that's just about everybody's work at the moment. So I don't know.